Engineer Srirag Keraj completed his B.Tech in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from Vidya Academy of Science and Technology in 2007. He started his career as Marine Electrical and Electronics Engineer trainee at MR Enterprises, Kochi, Kerala. Thereafter, joined Spectrum LLC in UAE as electrical engineer and later MEP project engineer. He was responsible in various portfolios like design, procurement, execution, and gained exposure to international standards and project specifications. In 2011, Mr. Srirag joined L&T Construction, an infrastructure division of Larsen and Toubro Group, as senior engineer involved with site execution, design coordination, testing and commissioning, tendering and contracts of several domestic and international projects. Currently, he is the manager in Electromechanical Competency Cell of L&T Construction HQ at Chennai. In this role, he has been instrumental in preparing or leading more than 250 high-value tenders in both government and private sectors that include new terminals of Delhi and Bangalore international airports, defense projects, new dry dock for Cochin shipyard, various AIIMS and other reputed hospitals, IIT and IIM campuses, IT parks, shopping malls, museums, etc., to mention a few in that list across the length and breadth of our country. Now I invite Mr. Srirag Kiraj for the presentation. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Deepthi. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, a very good evening and Eid Mubarak to one and all those who are watching this program through various online platforms. Today, in fact, it's a very pleasurable moment for me because I'm back in my college with some of my friends and getting a chance to interact with my juniors, the budding engineers of Vidya, and beloved teachers. See, college life is one of the important thing in everyone's life. It will be a game changer or a what to say. Your career is building from your college. So when you're out of the organization or the institution, then only you will realize how important your college life was. So enjoy your maximum level best, and at the same time, learn to live the life after education. So that's what my sincere advice to my young brothers and sisters. And I wish to take this opportunity to thank my college, the management, the present management and previous managements, and the teaching and non-teaching staffs, including lab staffs, and my dearest friends who supported me to build my career. So it was not so easy. And I wish to take this opportunity to appreciate the efforts taken by the Vidya International, our Association of Vidya Alumni for taking this initiative, because most of us have worked in various industries. More than, as somebody said, 6,500 students have came out from Vidya. So we are working in various industries, taking care of various activities, different professions, day-to-day activities. We would have learned so many lessons from in past a few years. So from alumni's perspective, we thought, okay, if we can share some of the ideas or some projects or some case studies to our young engineers, it will be helpful for them to build their career. I believe many sessions are going to come in future days. So my sincere request to everyone, try to attend maximum sessions, take positive things out of this, then focus on the relevant portion where you want to succeed or where is your positive thoughts or which you feel that you'll be able to improve your career. Focus on that area, then you will be succeeded in your life for sure. See, as Deepthi explained my or briefly explained my career, how I reached in this level and all, but there is a story behind this also. I was considered to be an average student myself. It's a self-assessment, probably teachers can correct me if I'm wrong. Being into EEE, those times only IT companies were there for campus recruitment, or we'll get possibility for campus placement only in IT companies. Now also mostly I think 99%, especially it's a private institution, so mostly that IT industries only will come for campus placement. But I had a mindset that if I'm completing 4 years in IEEE and I'm not getting any job in electrical related things, how it will be. So probably that mindset would have refrained me from focusing on IT jobs or a campus placement, or probably the lack of skills at that time may not be suitable for those companies to hire me. Anyway, I didn't get any campus placement. Many of my friends got campus placement in some of the IT companies. So immediately after the not graduation, the final year examination, the last semester examination, I think the very next week, myself and some of my friends together were involved in a project. One hospital was coming up in Thrissur. So with the help of Sudha ma'am, she helped us a lot, guided us to an architect. We collected the details and we have done the complete electrical system design and estimation for that particular project. It has so many learnings. I mean, I could learn so many things from that project, and probably that could be the driving point towards my career as well. Now I am into tendering and contracts for various projects in India and abroad. So without wasting much time, it's already 8:45, so we'll go to the topic of discussion. I hope this, whether everyone can see the screen. I hope it's clear. So, introduction to infrastructure businesses and MEP systems. So, today's discussion, I would like to divide it broadly into 4, and we can say in 5 categories we can discuss. What is infrastructure business? How we are seeing roads, railways, buildings. We know, everyone knows that these are the infrastructure businesses. So the infrastructures in the around us. So how these projects are getting executed, that is main thing. So what are the different phases of a infrastructure project? How we can classify? And if you take a typical infrastructure project, what are the systems? What are the services? This MEP services is for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing services. Plumbing or public health engineering, we can call it as. And some of the focus points I would like to tell in the infrastructure businesses. So what is an infrastructure? What is the word meaning? Everybody knows it's a, as I said earlier, these are the infrastructure we are seeing. But infrastructure word meaning itself, we can say any installation that forms the basis of a system or an operation. Road is an infrastructure. What is the purpose? For the vehicle movement. Same way, hospital. Hospital is an infrastructure for healthcare. Residential apartment for people to live. Then railways, metros. So we can broadly divide the infrastructure, basic infrastructures, into 3 categories. One is buildings, another one is transportation and heavy civil, and power and water sector. See, these all are different cycles actually. For every city or any particular location, this will come in a circular form. If it's a desert kind of situation, first what it is required, they need power and water. So automatically that will be the first priority. Then roads and the connectivity. So people have to move to that particular city. So that will be the second priority. And obviously when connectivity is there, industry started forming. It will be like a urbanization will happen there. So that time many people will come to that particular area. So for them, they need to have a residential place to stay. And for their movement and their education, in education institutions are required. Similarly, maybe few people are working in other industries, means for them, suitable office spaces are required. And for to cater their health and other leisure activities, the relevant hospitals or shopping malls or similar kind of setups are required. So it's just a cycle. So for any particular location, these things will come one by one. So to start with, these are some of the recent installations. It's world's biggest, tallest, largest, and highest installations happened in India in recent past, and many more to come. This one is supposed to be, you must be heard about Motera Stadium in Gujarat, recently inaugurated by Trump and Narendra Modi. And this one is world's highest railway bridge in India. It's across Chenab River. This is Hyderabad Metro Rail. It is the world's biggest PPP model project. PPP means public-private partnership project. So government and private company will contribute something. They'll make the project ready. Then they will run. Sometimes it's BOT, build, operate, and construct transfer model. So they'll build, they'll operate, and they'll transfer to the government back after a period. So it's the first world's largest PPP project happened in India in recent past. And this is the Badla Park at Rajasthan desert. It can generate up to 2.2 gigawatt of energy, which is almost equal to 3 times the power which can be generated from our Moolametham, Idukki Moolametham substation. And this, everybody knows, it's a Statue of Unity, world's tallest statue. So these are the broad classification on construction industry aspect. See, apart from this, in the businesses, there are other businesses also, like petroleum and food, the farming industry. So that are also part of infrastructure business only, but related to construction, we can broadly classify in these aspects. Here, WTP and STP calls for water treatment plant and sewage treatment plant, and water supply for domestic and industrial water, and smart infrastructure. Smart cities are coming up in various locations. So those things will come under smart infrastructure. And we have some, see here, one more thing I would like to say is this: buildings, transportation, and power. Buildings will be limited to a small particular area, like so and so kilometer, acres of land, they'll construct, they'll develop. But transportation business is something like, it's a broader perspective, this much kilometers from one end to another end, like railway, metros, roads, runways, and all, to name a few. So how these projects are getting executed? Basically, there is a project requirement. So normally client will be there, whether it is private client or government client. What they will do, they may not be expert in the design. They don't know how to create or generate the requirement. So what they will do, they know, okay, I'm planning to have a construction building that is for the IT purpose, or for a healthcare, I need to have a 300 bedded hospital, or an office space for so and so people, like that, or a residential apartment for this many flats. So that is the basic requirement, and I'll be having some budget. So what I'll do first, or I mean, in the sense, it's a client, I will discuss with a design consultant. Design consultant, based on the present regulations, rules and regulations, they will do the design, provided 3 things to be focused. One is the structural stability of the building, or any kind of project. The structural stability is most important thing. Second thing is architecture, the final outlook, how it look, how from our external point of view, how it will look, or the kind of finish, and the services, additional services that is required for that project for its smooth functioning. So that initial design phase will get over. And the design consultant may not be able to tell what is the project cost. So they will approach sometimes a cost consultant, or he will appoint a project management consultant. So this consultant role is to execute the project as per client requirement within the budget, considering all the design parameters. Means if something is deviating from the design, he will not accept it. And that is the main important. So they have to manage the project from A to Z, from day 1 to the final handing over. So this bidders means the people who are willing to come forward to execute that project. So let's say there are 3 bidders. What will happen? There will be some kind of bidding process will happen. You must have seen in newspapers, tender notice. This is the value. This related to water purification works, this is the value. Related to a building construction, this is the value. Sometimes they will mention the value, sometimes they will mention only the requirement in the tender notice. So these bidders will bid for the project, and the whoever is winning the bid as per the design requirement, means complying the design requirement and within the client budget, and if it is matching the credibility of the project, means some project credibility will be there. These are the minimum eligibility criteria. If they are meeting, they will award the job. And suppose the third bidder is winning that particular bid, then he will be having a separate execution team to execute the job and to do the detailed design. So some design done by the consultant. How we will verify? We have to verify whether the design is correct or wrong. So for that, they will have a design engineers, and if required, they can appoint a third-party consultant to verify the design. Sometimes client also will insist whether the design is correct from you yourself, because you are only finally going to guarantee the project. You are going to build and hand over the project to the client. So it has to be guaranteed properly. So maybe you need to appoint a separate third-party consultant to verify your design, whether you executed properly as per the original design, as per client requirement. So let's see what is this tendering and bidding process. So tendering means there will be a set of documents, client or the consultant or this project management consultant will release these documents to the bidders. So it will have the RFP. RFP means request for proposal. What is client requirement? That will be clearly mentioned. What is the eligibility criteria? Whether you have pre-qualification, how many value means how many similar kind of jobs you have executed in recent past. What is your financial stability? Because many of the things you need to procure your own, you should have proper financial stability. Then detailed technical specification of the product and the project based on the design. So like each and every product, what it has to be, what are the minimum requirement to meet that one. So these are some of the tender documents, minimum required tender documents. And the tender drawings means the basic design drawings, what initially the consultant have designed, those drawings also will be part of this. And the bill of quantity. Bill of quantity, you don't know, BOQ means if you purchase something, you will get a bill. It will have a serial number, the quantity, bill, the item, what is the item, what is the quantity, how many quantities are there, what is the rate and the amount. So it's like a BOQ. So amount and rate we have to fill. So that is a bill of quantity. Other things they will give. And some general and special conditions, which will talk about the safety and quality policies to be followed, and what is the project timeline. I need to complete this project within so and so period. And what is the defect liability period? It's like a warranty period. For every product, we'll ask what is the warranty, correct? The same way, for the project also, we have to give a defect liability. So within that defect liability period, if something happen, then we have to rectify it by our own cost within a stipulated period. So that is what defect liability period. So beyond defect liability period, client can ask for some additional warranty for certain products. Say, for example, if you see the light fixture, LED light fixtures are giving warranty for 5 years sometimes. So that like that, for many individual product wise, they can ask a warranty. And operation and maintenance, how you have installed so many things, how it has to be operated and maintained. And the payment terms and conditions. So during the execution, you have to get a part payment. No? So those details also will be clearly mentioned. And in case if you are not performing well, your contract will be terminated, correct? So that is like something related to performance bank guarantee. So that when you get a job, you have to deposit certain amount through banks to the client. So that they'll keep that amount till the end of defect liability period. So once it is over, then only they'll release them. And the list of approved makes, they will have some preferred makes. So that details also. So these are some tender documents. And a bidding process is like this: bidders, when they get the documents, they will understand this. They will have some pre-bid discussion. So if any discrepancy or if any clarification is required on these documents, that they can discuss with the client, PMC consultant, design consultant also will be available, client also will be available. So that clarification. So that is the first step of tendering or bidding process. Then we can do the detail estimation. You have to estimate so many things that will come in the next slides. Then we have to do the analysis, whether we have done some estimate, whether it is correct or wrong, whether it is matching with the similar projects, whether somewhere it is going wrong, those details we have to analyze it. What are the risks to be carried? Suppose if the project duration is 6 months, the currency fluctuations, it's a big factor. And the metal indices, see, there are metal components like copper, aluminum, like as many metals are involved in these projects. And steel prices, it will vary according to the market. So these things you have to analyze. Then we will submit the bid, and a particular day the bid also will get opened, and sometimes there will be some negotiation. If it's a private client, for negotiation is for sure. Government bid means sometimes negotiation will not be there if it's within their budget, and they will award the job. So that is the tendering and bidding process. So what are the various type of contracts? What is a contract actually? Contract means it is the legally enforced document, means it is legally, for everything we have to have a contract, proper contract, which will clearly specify what are the rights and duties of all the parties and what it is committing, whether I am ready to give certain services or product or warranty or some promises or some certain goods. So whether it is between the client and main contractor in the sense, the person who is bidding the job becomes a main contractor, or the main contractor and client, between them there will be a contract which will be mutually agreed by both the parties, including the payment terms and conditions. And apart from that, there will be contracts for each and everything. If you want to buy some material from some vendor, you have to make a contract with them. Okay, so the contracts can be broadly classified into 4 categories. One is rate contract. As we seen earlier, there will be a bill of quantity also will be provided by the client. We have to put the rates and amount. We have to fill the BOQ along with our bid. And we have to execute this project based on the GFC drawings. GFC drawings is nothing but good for construction drawings. So along with the initial tender drawings, once you get the job, then client or the consultant will release a set of drawings that is called good for construction drawings. So these drawings, based on these drawings only, we need to execute the job. And we will get paid based on the BOQ item rate what we have quoted. Second is percentage rate contract. This is a tricky type of contract. Means client will give the complete estimate. These are the items. This is the rate. This is the amount. And overall budget also they will give. And they will ask you study the details and quote the percentage rate over and above to be quoted on the client estimate. So in this case, what will happen? Suppose if 100 rupees is the total project value, if you're quoting 5% above, then that 5% will be applied on all the items throughout. If it is 5% less than the client estimate we are quoting, suppose 1000 crore is the value, then if you're quoting 10% less, what will happen? It will be 900 crores. So that will be uniformly applied on all the items. So if any particular item, if the actual cost is varying and quantity is increasing, we'll be ending up in loss. Third one is lump sum contract. We'll be getting various standard drawings. We need to assign what is the quantity, what are the items. We have to generate a BOQ, and we have to submit along with the bid. So these projects basically will be executed on milestone basis. Suppose if it's an institution building, so many buildings are there. Like in our campus, we have academic blocks, hostel blocks. So these projects has to be executed in milestone basis. So if you complete certain milestone, you will get paid like that. Next one is complete EPC job. So here the design consultant will give only preliminary design. The detail engineering, complete design we have to do along with procurement. I mean, it's like EPC will say engineering, procurement and construction. So from A to Z activity you have to do. Client can appoint a separate consultant to verify our design and to monitor. There will not be any BOQ shared in this particular case. We will be sharing a certain design based report. Based on our design, we will share some DVR and some agreed mutual terms and conditions. These are the items I am including in the scope. These are the items I am not including in the scope, like exclusion list. So based on this, if they are okay, client will give the award. So it's an EPC job. So most of the big jobs will go in EPC kind of setup. So what are the things to be considered in techno-commercial bid? Mainly, there are 3 categories. One is direct cost. What is the material involved? what is the labor component, and what are the taxes and duties like customs duties, import duties. Those details we need to assess. And what are the charges like material shifting channels, handling charges, if there are any insurance to be considered, those details will be there in the direct cost. And indirect cost is nothing but the plant and machineries. Main is plant and machinery. Like to construct a particular thing, we need to have some machineries like excavator, the tower crane in the construction field, if you see, and in the PT&D kind of setup means we need to have some that if it's a if it the transmission line is passing through a particular forest, that clearing is required. So for that, what are the equipments are required? That all will come under plant and machinery. And staff and labor camp, their accommodation, labor accommodation and staff salary and the safety related things and the temporary office setup. So we have to mobilize a certain team to the site to execute the job. So we need to have a temporary office setup for what are the costs incurred for that, and temporary power, construction power. So till the end of the project, until we get final load approval, electrical load approval, there will not be any permanent power. So temporary power we have to hire from the local authority. So these things will come under indirect cost. And on that, what are the profits, company's profits, margin, and any financial charges if you're taking a loan from the financial institutions, loan. So these things will come under overhead, profit, and margin. So these are the three major components of a commercial bid. Technical bid is nothing but whatever the client things they have asked, client has asked in the tender document. Those things we have to submit, like as I said, eligibility criteria, financial statement, PBG, bid security, and the technical data sheet of C. They will be asking the technical specification they will give for each and every product. So for that product, what is the technical data sheet? Means what we are committing. These are the things we can give. These are things we cannot give. So those details, we call it as technical data sheet of each and every product. So those technical data sheets part of a technical bid. And the project schedule, that is also important thing. Within stipulated period, we have to hand over this project. No? So what is the project schedule, and what is our action plan on that, and what will be the proposed site execution team. So this will constitute a technical bid. And commercial bid, as I said earlier, either it will be total value or a sales BOQ along with the payment terms and conditions. So mostly it will be given in two envelopes. One is a technical bid and commercial bid. So now first technical bid will be opened, assessed by the PMC consultant. In suppose if it's a government job, means PMC consultant will be CPWD or PWD department. They will assess the documents. If it's a private client, means they will appoint some consultant and they will verify the details. They will open the first technical bid. Whoever is qualifying for them, their commercial bid will be opened, and they will decide whoever is relevant, lowest one, for them the job will be awarded. So these are the different phases what you have discussed. Engineering, what we saw, they have to do the design, they have to follow the local regulations, like some certain building codes will be there, fire norms will be there, local EB regulations we need to follow. So those things will be taken care by the engineering team. And tendering and contracts, broadly we have seen what is the role of tendering and contracts. And procurement. Procurement means purchasing the material, finalizing the subcontractor to execute the job. So these details, it's a procurement department's responsibility to take care of this. And the quality of the product, it should be matching with the project requirement, correct? And from the initial stage, releasing the purchase order to a particular manufacturer, from there till the project reaching at site and getting commissioned, and till the defects liability period, the vendor or the manufacturer has to support for this project. So that is the complete SCM project. SCM responsibility lies with the procurement team. And execution. Execution means they have to do proper planning when these activities has to do, and we have to forecast. That means what are the material, when these materials will be required, how many manpower will be required at this particular period of time. So that is a forecasting. And the subcontractor management, like a separate contract they have to make with the subcontractor. If any specialized agency is required for them, separate contract has to be made. It will be taken care by the execution team, as well as the coordination with all the services. That is very important thing, because civil work will be the first priority. Along with that, what are the services that we need to coordinate with the civil to get a good progress? And they have to ensure whether the execution is done as per the original design, as per the good for construction drawings received, as per that only whether the project has been executed. That they have to ensure it, and complete testing, commissioning, and project delivery is their responsibility. So that is about the execution phase. Now, this is a typical infrastructure project I'm taking as an example. It's a building project. And what are the scope? What are the scope of various engineering department in a particular project? This is an aerial view of Mumbai International Airport. If you see electrical, civil point of view, first thing is the structure, the building structure. What we see here is some kind of structural supports, and we are seeing now. This is part of structure. And what is the architecture finish, like how it should look, the final finish, like if it's a high story building, what is the facade, how the facade should look like. So these details will be clearly mentioned in the architectural scope. And facade is nothing but, suppose if it's a metal aluminum facade, or sometimes we can go for media facade kind of setup. So means from external environmental, how it look like. That is the major role of facade services. And finishes. Final finishes includes the final furniture level, minute level things will be clearly mentioned in the finishing level. And MEP is mechanical, electrical, and public health engineering. Mechanical, what are the mechanical services, electrical services, and public health engineering services, that we will look into it later. And external developments like landscaping, and if there is any water feature, maybe some swimming pool, some fountains are there, that will come under water feature. And external development, so these services has to be connected. If multiple buildings are there, these services has to be connected properly. So that will be taken care by the external MEP works team. And if any compound wall, if it's a restricted area, because I'm talking about an infrastructure building point of view, not like a transportation or any other business. This is a typical example, and with that we will proceed. The project execution team is keeping for any execution. So the project manager will be there. He will be the end-to-end responsible person for that particular project. So under him, there will be various departments. One is the construction manager. He has to take care of the complete construction activity, from civil, structural, facade, everything he has to take care. And MEP manager will be there. They'll be taking care of the electrical and mechanical services related to that particular project. And safety and quality, whether it is executed as per the safety and quality norms, and there will be store to keep all the materials and the supply to this particular project during the execution, because we cannot just like that dump all the material at site, no. So for that purpose, we'll be having a storekeeper and other things, and accounts department. And along with the project manager, there will be a planning manager. He'll be equally responsible for the project from day one to till handing over. So this is a typical site organization chart. Okay, now let us see what are the broad MEP scope. So we have seen what are the type of infrastructure projects, how these projects are getting executed, what are the different type of bids, and for a typical MEP infrastructure project, what are the services involved, and what is an organization structure of a particular project. Those things we have seen. Now this is MEP services. MEP services, see, we can compare see, few people are not from electromechanical background, so for their benefit I will say you can just compare MEP services with a human body. Human body will have a structure. Our bones, muscles, and all will be part of structure. The skin color or the dress that we wear is related to facade works. Okay, and MEP services is like an internal organs, nerve systems. So these we can consider as a MEP system. So the proper functioning of a human we need to have these functions. This is building perspective I'm talking about. Okay, so mechanical systems can be classified into HVAC, heating, ventilation and air conditioning system, and fire protection system, and vertical and horizontal transport system. And there are some special systems. If you see the airports will have a baggage handling system, those kind of systems. Even though it is exactly not under mechanical, since it's a moving and related to some motor, I'm putting it in a VHT system. It is equally important, like or even the value base, if you see, the VHT and special system value will be more than that of a public health engineering service total value, if you value base, if you see, assess. But since it's related to motor, I'm putting in a mechanical system category. And electrical systems, as you know, from substations, how the power is getting distributed, what is the lighting forms, and ELV systems means extra low voltage system. What are the security fire alarm systems, public CCTV systems, and building management systems. That we will see in later stage. Okay, but what we see is maybe some lighting, some light grills, lift door, and we'll be operating that lift. We can see outside maybe some substation or a DG set or some access control. So this is what we see in basically in a building project. But how these systems are functioning, that we need to how. Since all of you are not from electrical background, I just wanted to explain how electrical system is power is getting generated. All of you know from hydroelectric power. From the reservoir, water will go to a turbine and it will rotate, and our alternator will be connected to that. Power is getting generated and it is transmitting to various locations. Similarly, for thermal power plant, water is getting boiled and it will rotate to the turbine, and that is connected to an alternator, and it is distributing. It is transmitting through transmission towers. Similarly, for solar and wind power. See, this transmission is happening at higher voltage to reduce the losses. So that is how the electrical power is getting generated and getting transmitted. But our focus is on the distribution portion. So when we get a power in our premises, the project location, we will have a point of supply, that is electricity board, HT panel or something, or a kind of RME setup. And metering also will be there. So from there, we'll have a consumer panel. We can step down, we can connect to the distribution transformer, and power is getting distributed in this way. So normally from HT, this is HT cable, and from transformer to LT distribution, the current value will be very high. So we cannot have a multiple run of cables and all. So for that purpose, we'll be using bus ducts. Bus duct is nothing but a big thick conductor in a rectangle shape to carry the current from transformer to, for high current distribution, we are using this bus duct. We'll see some of the components. So this is a typical HT panel and transformer. This is the LT panel, UPS, DG set, and these are some of the electrical components from various electrical components. This is a tap-off box. This is actually for high-rise buildings from main LT distribution panel to various floors. We cannot run multiple run of cables. So for that purpose, again, a conductor, aluminum or copper conductor will be running through the shaft, and there will be some tap off points. From there, we'll be taking the power to distribute the power in various areas. And finally, what we can see is lighting and power outlets. So these are some electrical components. Now let's see what are the basic air conditioning system involved in a particular building project. So basically, air conditioning system we can broadly classify into 4 categories. One is DX unit. DX is unit you must have seen. Everybody must have seen. It's a duct splitted AC unit. Indoor and outdoor unit will be there. Indoor unit will give the air condition, cool air inside the room. Correct. And in Western countries, we can have hot air as well. Chilled water system. So before going into that, let me explain you what is the basic principle of air conditioning system. Air conditioning system, we have 4 sections. One is compression. So there will be a gas which will be compressed. So when compression took place, the pressure increases, automatically temperature also will get increased. So the gas will be passing through a particular condenser where the heat exchange will take place. Like a vehicle's radiator, no, the same way it will be passing through a different fins, the same gas, and maybe sometimes there will be fans so that the heat will be dissipated, means dissipated to the air, or there will be a separate loop of water which is connected to a cooling tower that will give a that will be used to dissipate the heat from this condenser. So when the heat is dissipated, the refrigerant will be at lower temperature. Then when this refrigerant is passing through an expansion valve, further the temperature will drop. Okay, so it will be very chilled. That will be passing through an evaporator. So these are the main four components of air conditioning cycle. So this evaporator will it's again like a condenser unit. There will be separate fins which will have the cold gas will pass through this evaporator, and there will be a separate loop of water. This primary and secondary is basically a chilled water. Okay, this water will be passing through it. So again, heat exchange process will take place, and this will go back to the compressor. So this is the air conditioning cycle. So this principle is mainly used in chilled water system. So what we see is a typical example of a building. It's a sectional view. This is a chiller. It can generate chilled water, and this heat storage tank that we will see later. So it will pass, there will be a pump which will pump this chilled water to the building. This blue line is for chilled water. Okay, so this will be connected to floor air handling units. Air handling units means the unit again will have a heat exchanger. Like the pipes will be there, there will be a fan, it will blow, and the cool air will be distributed through some devices called variable air volumes or VCD kind of setup. So through the AC grills we will get a cool air. Okay, the same way this is particular circuit for cooling tower, which will reduce means this condenser to cooling tower connectivity. This action will take place here. That is for chiller. And this also will have a fresh air unit which absorb the fresh air from outside, and it will supply. So we'll have a fresh air facility also inside the closed air conditioner room. And there is a return air duct. Either it is through a duct or it will be an open duct, duct system to get the return air back to the air handling machine. Whatever the air is going inside the building should come back. Then only the air circulation will take place. So this is the basic functioning of air conditioning. And what are the system components? This is called chiller. A chiller will look like this, and this is the condensation pipeline system. Here this is evaporator side. This will be circulated to building, and this will be to the cooling tower. These are some pumps, and this is air cooled chiller. Here there will not be any cooling tower, but there will be some fans. So whatever the hot air, it will be taken out through these fans, and the refrigerant will circulate within the unit. And this is a typical air handling unit. It will have our return air and supply air dampers here, and this is the cooling tower and fan inside, whatever I said. And here I have explained about the district cooling. I have not explained about this district cooling system. District cooling system is nothing but in a smart cities and all, we'll have multiple chillers which will generate the cold air, cold water, chilled water. It will be distributed just like power, how the power is distributed to various buildings. This cool chilled water will be distributed to various buildings. It may be for different clients. Only they have to have a heat exchanger and a BTU meter to measure the amount of cold, means chilled water they used for that particular project, to the particular project. For that there will be some metering will be there. That is called a BTU meter. Through that they can absorb the heat from district cooling plant. Okay, so it's like a mass and big infrastructure, or what to say, uh, smart city kind of setup. You'll be using mainly this district cooling system. And radiant cooling is something different. Like within the building, we'll be having pipeline. So when you do the structural installation, we'll have a pipeline for radiant cooling system. So there will not be any duct or anything. The refrigerant or chilled water, there is a separate water passing through this pipeline, and it will dissipate the cooled air to the building. So that is called a radiant cooling system. So these are some HVAC components. Now, another important parts of HVAC system are pressurization and ventilation. So what is a pressurization? Pressurization means, see, you must have noticed a fire exit door in shopping malls and all, right? In the event of fire, you should use only fire exit, because there will be certain fans on the top of the building which will pressurize the staircase area, so that you will not get any suffocation. So inside the staircase, it will be at higher pressure. And in case of, if there is any fire in a particular floor, the smoke detector will detect, and it will give the indication to the fire alarm system. So these red things are fire dampers. Okay, fire and smoke dampers. So dampers is nothing but it's a door kind of arrangement. It's a grill with a door kind of arrangement. There will be a motor connected with that. So in the event of fire, which floor that fire has occurred or a smoke is coming, that particular damper alone will actuate, and it will open, and there will be some smoke extract fans at the top of the building that will extract. So through the shaft, the smoke will be evaporated. So pressurization system is very much required for any particular building for the safety of the people and the building. So since the law, negative pressure inside the particular area and positive pressure inside the lobby as well as the staircase, the smoke will not come to this area, and people will be, it can escape from that building. So that is the importance of pressurization system in a particular building. And ventilation system. Ventilation system, like in pressurization, suppose if it's a basement area, the major threat is carbon dioxide, because of the vehicle parking, because so many vehicles will be parked there, their movement will be there. So carbon dioxide will be generated in the basement area. So for a ease of breathing and to give a fresh air to the basement area, there will be some fresh air and exhaust fans associated with this ventilation system. So how this will work at the normal situation, based on the carbon dioxide sensors inputs, there will be a control panel that will sense the carbon dioxide level. We can set the level accordingly. These fans will supply the power to the basement area through a particular shaft or a duct, and it will be connected through certain grills to the different floors, like different basements. And there will be some horizontal axial fans that will give a circulation within the floor area. And there will be some exhaust fan also. So automatically there will be supply of air and return air will be through exhaust fans. So there will be some movement here. So that is called basement ventilation basically. And at the event of fire, these fans are capable of going for 2 speeds. So at the event of fire, this will go for higher speed, and it will supply more air to the required area. We can have some kind of CFD analysis and all, so that which all fans has to run at higher speed. That program we can do it in this panel. So that is the importance of ventilation system and pressurization system in any particular building. Now, what are the fire protection system? Fire protection system you must have seen. You have a fire pump. Fire pump is nothing but the big pump capable of supplying water to the different parts of the building. That is the main intention. And that will have an electric pump as well as diesel pump. So if there is no power, automatically the diesel pump will start, and it will pump the water to the different parts of the building. So wet riser means it's nothing but the fire pump will pump the water through wet riser to different parts. And sprinkler system, you know, if there is any fire occurred, if the temperature reached beyond a particular level, then there will be a bulb on the in particular portion, and that bulb will burst, and it will start spraying the water in that particular area. So automatically it will give the sense to the nearest zone control valve. Zone control valve is nothing but that entire building will be divided into different zones, and that valve will detect the signal, and it will give back to the signal back to fire alarm panel. Okay, and extinguishers are you must have seen how to use these things to be demonstrated during the fire drill. And fire hose reels and some landing walls. Landing wall is nothing but this reels has to be connected somewhere, no? That these are the landing walls. So this wet riser will have a landing wall at every level, and this hose reel we can connect and take the water from this pressure water. This hose reel will be varying from 15 meter, 30 meter, 45 meter according to the local regulations. We can install that one, and the size of the building. And if certain areas where the panels are there we cannot have normal water spraying system. So there we'll be using foam extinguisher systems. This foams will be connected through a pipeline, and at the event of fire, this foam will be sprayed like this. So it will distribute in particular area, and these are some fire hydrant. So if there is no water in that building, see, normally building will have a water storage of say 2 hours or 3 hours of continuous operation. But in case the water is getting exhausted, we need to have separate connection from outside. So the water tanker will come, fire engines will come, they will connect through these fire hydrants and supply the water inside the building. So normally this will be dry riser, and wet riser will have connectivity to the sprinkler. And what are the VHT system? VHT system means vertical and horizontal transport system. We know, everybody knows, lifts are the main vertical transport system in almost every buildings. We have various type of lifts. One is the lift with machine room and without machine room. And based on the requirement, we can see that glass lifts and all, that is called a panoramic lift, and goods lift. Sometimes if the vehicle has to be moved for parking area and all, we can have a goods lift. If there is no sufficient space for a ramp to come down to the basement, we can have a goods lift and a hydraulic lifts as well, and escalators and travelators. See, most of us have familiar with the single shaft lifts, right? In one lift shaft, there will be one lift, and it will shuttle between various floors. That is the main purpose of a lift. But in 2003, one invention came. We can have multiple car lifts. Means within the one shaft, we can have multiple cars, so that at the same time, the same lift can have two destinations. Each floor means if you stop it in one location, it can cater two floors at the same time. So that is called double check lift, and a twin elevator also. Like in the same lift lobby, two lifts can travel together. That is the importance of twin lift. Now destination control system also came into picture in lifts. That means instead of pressing up and down arrow, we can have a destination control panel or a smart panel in particular lift lobby. You can press which floor you want to go, just press. So it will show which out of ABCD lift, which lift will go to that particular floor. You can go and stand in front of that lift. So this can save tremendous time. That is about the VHT system. And some of the ELV systems in building project. First is IBMS. IBMS is like a master control of all the systems, or a SCADA system in electrical, the same way IBMS, integrated building management system for a building. So that will connect to various equipments, and other CCTV system or access control system, any network, telephone and data networking system, anything and everything can be connected to the system through a particular controller. And even if it is required, we can connect to a cloud and we can take the data from that. And nurse call system basically used in hospitals, in which from which room the callers comes up. That there will be bed head panel behind the patient bed. So you can just press the particular button. You will come to know from which patient the caller from. So accordingly, nurse can attend. In nurse stations, we will be installing this nurse call system. And the AV system means audio video system for the public announcement, and some music we need to play means we can use that one. And videos, AV system, video system means it will be used for general awareness. If some advertisement we need to do, for that we'll be using video systems. Video wall is, again, we can connect all the CCTV. Suppose it will be mainly in the BMS room, there will be a separate space allocated for the BMS room. We can have a video wall which can monitor various systems performing in that particular building. And media facade is something different. It's we have seen about the normal facade. Facade means like aluminum cladding. Instead of normal plaster, how we used to do the plaster outside the building, right? Instead of that, we'll have a aluminum panel or cladding. That is called a facade work, right? So instead of normal facade, we can have a video facade or media facade. This media facade is look like a LED strips, which can have a transparency of say 90%. So normal time we can have a daylight inside the building. So that's a media facade. It can be programmed, and whatever the news, if there is any function happening inside the building, if you want to project it outside, means we can go for media facade. It's a very costly thing, and that also will come under a ALV system. And telephone and data networking, everybody knows data is one of the important thing, and data centers also coming up. Data center is core, one of the core infrastructure business nowadays, because data is important for each and every business. Everything is going digital, so it is more important to have a data center and its security and its proper functionality. And PHE system. PHE system means it is cater different water supply requirement and its drainage requirement, and how the drainage water is getting treated. For that, we'll be having sewage treatment plant, and for to purifying the water, we can have a water treatment and its softener. So these are some components in PHE system. Since time is already 9:45, I don't want to explain more into this. We can have a detailed discussions if required at later stage. So now these are the MEP system we have seen. So let us see how the world at present stage. What are the important things to be noticed in construction industry? We have high potential in construction industry. Lot of demands. There are many countries, developed countries and undeveloped countries. There are ample opportunities, and many of the countries, including India, they have high market potential in another aspect, like only 25% of the roads are 4-lane, means national highways are 4-lane. So like that, and government is giving 100% FDI for infrastructure project. So there are ample opportunities for any construction business, but the biggest challenge construction industry is facing is productivity. Our productivity is increasing only 1% every year. It is average productivity, but in last 2 decades, if you see, only 1% improvement in every year, and as far as the construction industry is concerned. But world economy is going at around 2.8 to 3.3 percentage in every year. So the main challenges are extensive regulations and corruptions happening in various projects, and the proper risk allocation is not happening. Sometimes you will be under quoting based on certain risk parameters. So these are the certain points which is affecting the productivity of a particular infrastructure project. And we can focus on certain areas. Since time is limited, I don't want to describe all these things in detail. Uh, we can focus on certain areas to improve our to have a better um, involvement in the construction industry. And these are the things, some things involved in the recent past in the construction industry. And what are the productivity, how the productivity is getting affected, what are the new opportunities. So these are some areas which I would like to say you need to focus on your career if you are coming to construction industry. And another thing is you can focus on some of the product aspect. See, these are some of the manufacturers who supports the construction industry with various products. So there are ample opportunity and options right from the R&D till the operation and maintenance. If you are more into technical, you can concentrate on R&D, you can do higher studies, you can go for more detail into particular product. If you can contribute something to a particular product, means you can propose to these companies and they will hire you. Similarly, specification and business development. See, once you develop, actual development is happening at manufacturer level, correct? So once you manufactured, you need to do the specification to these consultants. So how these products, what are the important features that we need to explain to the consultants. So that is specification and business development from the manufacturer's point of view. Okay, so once the product is okay for the consultant, they will be proposing in the projects. So that once they propose that particular product in a project, particular to that project, we need to have some specific designs according to the location of the project or any other parameters specific to the project. We need to have more detailed specification. That support we need to do. Suppose if it's a lighting design to be done for a particular project, we can the OEM has to support sometimes with the new product and what is the capability of this product, and it's some technical data we need to share to the consultant or to the project team. So these are the areas, some of the areas you can focus. And again, sales and marketing, finally, with the bidders or the contractors, you need to have a proper sales and marketing team. So for a particular product, from R&D, business development, sales and marketing, execution, and till to maintain operation and maintenance of that particular product. For example, DG set, you need to maintain for a particular period. You need to have an AMC for that. So these are some areas you can focus in. So first you should know what are the companies, what are the products, what are the OEMs, what are the products they are dealing, how these products, what improvement you can make. So to make an example, elevator industry. Elevator has formed, I think, in 1840s. So almost 160 years. No much development has it. There will be a rope, there will be a cabin or a car which will be moving through the shaft. Okay. So this is not to support any particular vendor, but this is just wanted to say one focus point where, for an example, what one person or a team of engineers focused on a particular product and how they have done the engineering to build or to develop that particular product. So what they have done, instead of a rope, they have used magnetic levitation technology. And the same cabin can travel vertical as well as horizontal, unless the travelator or escalator, if you go, for example, our campus, we need to go from our electrical department to mechanical department. It is connected, but whether with the help of a motor or a cabin or a lift, we can move from here to there. No, that is not possible. The same way, take the example of Amrita Hospital. There are multiple towers. To come from one department to another building, you need to have a proper connectivity. For that, you need to come to basement or a common corridor. But if there isn't a lift which can travel from one tower to another tower, that is beneficial. So this is one such thing. It is called a multi-elevator, and it is a pilot project also got executed in Germany, and it can reduce up to 30% of the footprint. This is it can achieve peak maximum Peak maximum demand means, see, for office building, peak demand will be early morning hours and evening. Similarly, hospital means throughout. Airport means it will be during the arrival and departure time. The peak arrival and departure time, the traffic will be more. So these are the certain aspects of this one. I have the video of this, but since the time limitation, I'm not going into it. You can Google it and get the details if required. So if you're interested in construction industry, these are the some documents to start with. If you just Google it, CPWD specification, it will come. Like what are the different kind of project, what are the different specifications, civil related specification, electrical including the mechanical as well, various systems, how these, I mean, for the actual industries, based on most of the government projects are executing based on this specification, and you can get the present rates. It will be arrived based on certain analysis, and what are the rate analysis, what are the component involved in that particular item, how the rate has arrived. So those details are available in the CPWD publications. So if you're interested, you can go through it. There are some handbooks also available, and in various industries, like not only related to building, for road construction, what are the things to be followed, for any kind of infrastructure. As I said earlier, it can be classified into three categories. So almost all the projects will be covered. So this is basically for government projects. This will be, and for private projects, individual consultant will have their own specifications and things. But for the justification purpose, again, we can refer these documents. So to start with, if you're interested, you can refer some of these things. So that's all for the time being, and I wish you a good luck and all the very best. And I believe together we can build a better nation. Any questions, please?
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to express our sincere thanks to you for giving such an excellent coverage on this topic.